The explosion ripped through the bonding ceremony like the hand of an angry god. One moment, Yoon Seo stood at the altar in midnight blue hanbok, silk embroidered with silver cranes, traditional and perfect, his hand clasped with Jaewon's as the officiant blessed their bond with ancient words.
May your bond be blessed with the strength of tradition and the grace of the cranes.
The next moment, the world became fire and glass and screaming. The blast waved through him sideways. His body hit marble with bone-jarring force. His suppressants shattered, literally, the emergency dose in his inner pocket breaking against his ribs. His omega scent flooded out, raw and unfiltered for the first time in months, mingling with smoke and blood and burning silk. When Yoon Seo pushed himself upright, his ears ringing and vision swimming, he felt Jaewon's hand grip his arm, checking for injury, pulling him close with alpha instinct. Around them, chaos, guests screaming, security shouting commands, Mi Kyung's voice cutting through the pandemonium in 3 languages. The beautiful ceremony hall had become a war zone in seconds. Then Yoon Seo saw her. Hannah. His 16-year-old sister stood frozen in the doorway where the security team had been escorting guests to safety. Her school uniform was dusted with debris. Her face, God, her face held the kind of horror that shatters innocence permanently. She wasn't looking at the destruction. She was looking at him. At her brother rising from the rubble in torn ceremonial robes, blood splattered across expensive fabric. At Jaewon's possessive grip on his wrist. At the armed guards surrounding them with weapons drawn. At Mi Kyung barking orders while blood ran down her temple. At Park Do-hyun and the other underbosses forming a protective perimeter around the altar. Oppa. Hannah's voice cracked, small and breaking. What is this? Every lie Yoon Seo had constructed over 3 months, the corporate security job, the business opportunity, the carefully maintained illusion of normalcy, crumbled like ash. His 2 worlds had collided, and there was no going back. 3 months earlier, Yoon Seo didn't witness Choi Sung-min's execution. He wasn't invited, and he didn't ask. But he saw the aftermath in Jaewon's eyes when the Alpha returned to the estate at dawn, something dark and final, a line crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. It's done, was all Jaewon said, his scent heavy with gunpowder and something copper-sharp that made Yoon Seo's Omega instincts recoil. Then, quieter, thank you. For seeing what I couldn't. The gratitude felt weighted, significant. Yoon Seo had helped expose the traitor. He'd proven his value in blood and intelligence. The organization knew it now. 2 days later, Mi Kyung summoned them both to her office. The bonding ceremony happens in 3 months, she announced, no room for negotiation in her tone. Sung-min's betrayal shook confidence. The family needs to see commitment. Permanence. You two need to be seen together, publicly, as a unified force. A tour, Jaewon said, understanding immediately. Exactly. Every major operation, every underboss, every legitimate front. Show them the partnership is real. Mi Kyung's gaze landed on Yoon Seo. You're not an accessory anymore. You're co-architect of this empire's future. Act like it. The tour began at the Incheon shipping yards where cargo containers stacked like steel mountains against the yellow dawn. Park Do-hyun met them at the gate, his respect for Yoon Seo now evident in the slight bow he offered, not the dismissive nod from 3 months ago, but genuine acknowledgement. The western routes are secure, Do-hyun reported, leading them through the facility. Since Sung-min's departure, we've restructured the oversight protocols. No single point of failure. Yoon Seo listened, asked precise questions about verification systems and backup channels. Do-hyun answered without condescension, and when Yoon Seo suggested a cross-reference protocol between shipping manifests and customs declarations, the underboss actually implemented it on the spot. Jaewon watched this exchange with an expression Yoon Seo was learning to read, approval mixed with something warmer, something that made his alpha scent shift subtly in ways that bypassed Yoon Seo's suppressants and went straight to his hindbrain. They visited the Gangnam nightclub that served as a front for money laundering operations. The manager, a sharp-eyed beta woman named Sun Hee, gave them the tour while legitimate patrons danced upstairs, unaware of the counting rooms below. Yoon Seo noticed discrepancies in the ledgers, pointed them out quietly. Sun Hee's eyes widened. You're right. I'll audit the evening shift supervisor. Do it quietly, Yoon Seo suggested. If there's theft, we want to know who else is involved before we move. Jae-won's hand found the small of Yoon Seo's back as they left, a possessive gesture that sent heat through Yoon Seo's suppressant dampened system. You're better at this than half my senior staff. I just pay attention. No. Jae-won's voice dropped lower, intimate despite the guards surrounding them. You see patterns. You think 3 moves ahead. That's not attention. That's instinct. The compliment shouldn't have affected Yoon Seo as much as it did. But something was shifting between them, had been shifting since the night in the library, since Jae-won had said partner instead of asset. The performance they were supposed to be giving for the organization was becoming less performance and more reality. At the Itaewon restaurant that fronted for the organization's intelligence hub, they met with information brokers and analysts. Yoon Seo participated in the briefing on Black Lotus movements, offering observations that made the analysts pause and reconsider their conclusions. When he suggested a pattern in Kang Min-ho's recent attacks, targeting not just operations but specifically locations where Omegas might be present, the room went silent. He's trying to prove a point, Yoon Seo said. That Omegas are vulnerabilities. That Jae-won's choice to bond with me makes him weak. Every attack is psychological warfare designed to make you doubt this partnership. Jung Tae-young, the elder underboss, smiled grimly. Then we prove him wrong by making you indispensable. Which, I notice, you already are. That night, returning to the estate, Jae-won drove himself rather than using the driver. The privacy of the car felt deliberate, intentional. You didn't have to do this, Jae-won said, his eyes on the soul light streaming past. The tour, the engagement, any of it. The contract gave you an out after a year. I know. So why? Jae-won glanced at him, and in the dashboard's glow, his expression was unguarded for once. Why are you really doing this? Yoon Seo considered lying, deflecting. But 3 months had taught him that lies were expensive in this world. Because somewhere between Command Central and tonight, I stopped pretending. This isn't performance anymore, Jae-won. I want this. The power, the partnership, he stopped, unsure how to finish. Jae-won's scent flooded the car, pine and steel, but underneath it something warmer, richer, the beginning of what Omegas called claim scent. The biological precursor to bonding. Possessive and protective and entirely too appealing. The what? Jae-won pressed, his voice rough. You, Yoon Seo admitted quietly. I want you. Not the contract. Not the deal. You. The car swerved slightly before Jae-won corrected. His hands tightened on the wheel, knuckles white. When they reached the estate, he didn't move to exit. Just sat there, breathing hard, fighting for control. My Omega instincts are a mess around you, Yoon Seo continued, because apparently he decided honesty was the theme tonight. The suppressants barely work anymore. You walk into a room and my biology screams at me to submit, to trust, to. Jae-won kissed him. Hard, claiming, 3 months of tension breaking like a dam. His hand cupped Yoon Seo's jaw, tilting his head back, and Yoon Seo's suppressants failed completely. His scent poured out, rain and earth and something sweet that made Jae-won groan against his mouth. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jae-won's eyes had darkened to pure alpha possession. 3 months, he said. Then you're mine. Officially. Permanently. Yoon Seo smiled, dangerous and sure. I already am. The call came during a strategy meeting about Black Lotus surveillance patterns. Yoon Seo's phone buzzed, Hannah's name lighting up the screen, and his stomach dropped before he even answered. Oppa. Her voice was pure joy, the kind of happiness that made his chest ache. I got in. Early admission to Yonsei University. Can you believe it? Yoon Seo stepped out of the conference room, aware of Jae-won's eyes tracking his movement. That's incredible, Hannah. I'm so proud of you. I know it's sudden, but I want to come visit this weekend. See your new place, meet your boss. You've been talking about this security consulting firm for months and I still don't even know what they're called. Plus, I miss you. It's been 3 months since I've actually seen you in person. Terror gripped him like ice water. Seoul. Yonsei was in Seoul. 20 minutes from the Han estate. Too close. Far too close. This weekend isn't good, Yoon Seo said, his mind racing through excuses. I have a client presentation. International hours. It's complicated. You always say it's complicated. Hannah's tone shifted, hurt creeping in. What about next weekend? Or the one after? Oppa, I'm starting to think you don't want me to visit. That's not, Hannah, of course I want to see you. It's just. Why don't you ever video call anymore? The question came sharp, accusatory. It's always voice only. And your phone goes straight to voicemail during weird hours, like you're in different time zones or something. Are you actually in Seoul? Or did you lie about that too? I'm in Seoul, Yoon Seo said quietly, hating how easily the deflection came now. The firm has strict security protocols. No cameras in certain areas. And the hours are irregular because we work with international clients. Silence on the other end. Then, you sound different. Like you're reading from a script. I'm just tired. You're always tired now. You're always busy. You're always, she stopped, and when she spoke again, her voice was small. I'm starting to forget what you look like when you're not stressed. The Oppa I knew used to laugh. When did you stop laughing? The words hit harder than any of Park Do-hyun's training strikes. Yoon Seo leaned against the hallway wall, closing his eyes. I'm sorry. This job, it's demanding. But it's good money, Hannah. Enough to pay for Yonsei. Enough for both of us to finally breathe. I don't care about breathing if you're not actually living. Her voice cracked. Just, let me visit. Please. One weekend. I need to know you're okay. I'll figure something out, Yoon Seo promised, the lie tasting like ash. Let me check my schedule and I'll call you back. After they hung up, Yoon Seo stood in the empty hallway, his heart racing and suppressants failing to contain the distress pheromones flooding his system. How was he supposed to do this? Bring Hannah to a fabricated apartment, maintain the fiction of a normal life, all while preparing for a bonding ceremony that would tie him permanently to Seoul's criminal underworld? Bad news? Mi Kyung's voice made him jump. She stood at the end of the hall, elegant and terrifying as always, her expression unreadable. My sister. She got into Yonsei. She wants to visit. I see. Mi Kyung moved closer, her heels clicking against marble. And you've been telling her you work in corporate security consulting, I assume? Living in a modest apartment in Gangnam, attending client meetings, living a nice, normal life. Yes. The lies are piling up. It wasn't a question. I'm protecting her, Yoon Seo said, defensive. She's 16. She doesn't need to know about, he gestured vaguely at the estate around them, at the world of violence and power plays and midnight executions. Doesn't need to know, or you're not ready to tell her. Mi Kyung's gaze was surgical, cutting through his rationalizations. I heard what she said, Yoon Seo. About you not laughing anymore. About sounding like you're reading from a script. She knows something is wrong. She just doesn't know what yet. What am I supposed to do? Tell a 16-year-old girl that her brother is bonding with a mafia boss? That he helps plan intelligence operations and identifies traitors? That would destroy her. Lying to her is destroying her. Mi Kyung's tone was matter-of-fact, brutal in its honesty. You're trying to live in two worlds simultaneously, and it's tearing you apart. I've seen this before, people who think they can compartmentalize, who believe they can protect their families through deception. It never works. So what's your advice? Yoon Seo asked bitterly. Tell her everything and traumatize her? Or disappear from her life completely? Those are your options, yes. Mi Kyung's expression didn't soften. Either bring her into the truth, help her understand, give her the choice to accept or reject what you've become, or cut her out completely. Create distance. Protect her through absence rather than lies. She's my sister. I can't just. Half measures get people killed, Yoon Seo. Mi Kyung's voice dropped, deadly serious. In 3 months, you'll be formally bonded to J1. Your face will be known to every rival organization in Asia. Kang Minute-ho already sent a message saying he's coming for the pretty Omega. If Hannah is connected to you visibly, publicly, she becomes leverage. She becomes a target. So you need to decide, truth or distance. But you cannot continue this performance. It's not sustainable, and it's not safe. She left him standing there, her words echoing in the empty hallway. Yoon Seo's phone buzzed again. A text from Hannah, I love you, Oppa. Whatever's going on, we can fix it together. Just let me in. He stared at the message until his vision blurred, knowing that letting her in meant destroying the innocence he'd sacrificed everything to preserve. The summons came at midnight, not through guards or formal channels, but a handwritten note slipped under Yoon Seo's door, my private study. Come alone. He found Mi Kyung in a room he'd never seen before, a sanctuary tucked behind her office that smelled of jasmine and old paper. She sat in a wingback chair that seemed too large for her suddenly, a tea service arranged on the low table before her. In the soft lamplight, she looked smaller than Yoon Seo had ever seen her. Frailer. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured tea, barely noticeable, but Yoon Seo had spent months learning to observe micro-expressions, to catch details others missed. The tremor was new. Or perhaps he'd simply never been permitted to see it before. Sit, she said, her voice still commanding despite the weakness Yoon Seo now recognized in the set of her shoulders. He sat, accepting the cup she offered. The tea was perfect, as always, oolong with a hint of chrysanthemum. They drank in silence for a moment, and Yoon Seo waited. Mi Kyung didn't summon people at midnight for casual conversation. I'm dying, she said finally, matter-of-fact as discussing quarterly earnings. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors give me 6 months, perhaps 8 if I'm fortunate. Though I've never been particularly interested in fortune. The words hit Yoon Seo like a physical blow. His cup froze halfway to his lips. Does J1? He knows I'm ill. He thinks I have years. Her smile was sad, knowing. I've let him believe that because he needs to focus on consolidating power, not on losing his mother. The transition must happen cleanly, Yoon Seo. No emotional fractures. No visible weakness that rivals can exploit. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what the last 3 months have really been about. Mi Kyung set down her cup, her hands steadying with obvious effort. I didn't train you to be J1's pretty Omega bride. I trained you to be what I am. What I've been for 30 years. She stood, moved to a wall panel that slid open at her touch, revealing a safe. Inside were files, physical ones, the old-fashioned kind that couldn't be hacked or traced digitally. She retrieved them with reverent care, returning to place them on the table between them. 30 years of intelligence, Mi Kyung said. Leverage on allies and enemies. Contingency plans for every scenario I could imagine. Secret accounts, hidden assets, information that could destroy or save this organization depending on who wields it. Her eyes met his, fierce despite the illness ravaging her body. This is your inheritance. Not money. Not property. Knowledge. Power. Yoon Seo stared at the files, understanding the weight of what she was offering. Why me? You barely knew me 3 months ago. I knew enough. Mi Kyung's smile was slight but genuine. I watched you take a bullet for a stranger. I watched you demand to be useful rather than decorative. I've spent 3 months testing you, the interrogation room, the engagement dinner, the missions I've assigned. Every moment was evaluation. She opened the first file, showing him documents that detailed blackmail material on a prominent politician. You see patterns others miss. You think strategically, not emotionally. You understand that survival in this world requires being 3 moves ahead of everyone else. She looked up at him. You think like I do. Like J1 does. That's rare, Yoon Seo. Rarer than you know. He needs a partner, Yoon Seo said quietly, beginning to understand. Not just a partner. A co-head. Mi Kyung's voice was intense now, urgent. When I'm gone, the organization will be vulnerable. Rivals will test him. Internal factions will question his judgment. He needs someone beside him who isn't just a bonded mate for appearances. Someone who can run intelligence operations, manage the political landscape, see the threats he's too close to notice. She pulled out another file, this one detailing the Black Lotus's financial networks. I've been building you into that person. Teaching you to read people, to manipulate situations, to use your position as Omega to access spaces and information that alphas can't reach. But you need to survive the transition first. The transition? My death. Blunt, brutal honesty. When I die, there will be a power vacuum. The underbosses respect you now, but respect is fragile. You'll need to prove yourself absolutely, not as my protege, but as J1's equal. As co-head of this family. Yoon Seo's throat tightened. I don't know if I can. You can. Mi Kyung's hand covered his, her grip surprisingly strong. I've watched you transform from a frightened delivery driver into someone who commands rooms without raising his voice. You identified a traitor the organization's best investigators missed. You negotiated an interrogation breakthrough in minutes. You've earned the respect of men who've spent decades in this world. She leaned back, exhaustion crossing her face. But you need to understand something, Yoon Seo. This world will demand everything from you. Your innocence, your illusions about yourself, your relationship with your sister. It takes and takes until you become someone you barely recognize. I need to know you're prepared for that. I don't know if anyone can be prepared for that. No, Mi Kyung agreed. But you can choose it anyway. Choose to become what J1 needs. What this organization needs. Her eyes softened slightly. What I believe you were always meant to become, even if the path to get here was written in violence. She gestured to the files spread between them. Study these. Memorize them. They're yours now. My life's work, my legacy, given to the Omega who threw himself in front of a bullet and changed everything. Yoon Seo looked at the files, years of intelligence, carefully cultivated leverage, the architecture of an empire. His inheritance. His burden. His future. When do I tell J1? He asked quietly. About your timeline? You don't. Not until after the bonding ceremony. He needs to be focused, not grieving. Mi Kyung's smile was sad. Let him have these last months believing we have time. It's the last gift I can give him, the illusion of permanence. She stood, and Yoon Seo rose with her. In the lamplight, she looked like what she was, a queen preparing her successor, a mother securing her son's future the only way she knew how. Don't let him face this world alone, Mi Kyung said. That's all I ask. Yoon Seo bowed, not the casual acknowledgement he'd given before, but the deep, formal bow of someone accepting a sacred trust. I won't, he promised. I swear it. The bonding ceremony preparation consumed the final 2 weeks before the event, transforming the Han estate into a theater of calculated perfection. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a political statement written in silken tradition, a message to every rival organization in Asia that the Han family was unified, strong, and unassailable. Yoon Seo's education intensified to a level that made his previous training seem gentle by comparison. The ceremonial instructor was a stern woman in her 70s named Professor Kang, who'd spent 40 years teaching traditional Korean rituals to families wealthy enough to afford authenticity. She drilled Yoon Seo relentlessly on every gesture, every bow, every nuance of the ancient bonding ceremony. The Paibak ritual requires you to bow precisely this way, she demonstrated, her aged body moving with surprising grace. Not subservient, you are not a lesser Omega begging for acceptance. You are an equal entering a partnership. Your posture must convey respect without submission. Authority without arrogance. Yoon Seo practiced the movements until his muscles ached, until the formal bows became muscle memory. The ceremony would be watched by hundreds, allies, rivals, underbosses testing his worthiness. One wrong gesture could be interpreted as weakness. Better, Professor Kang finally said after his 50th attempt. You're learning that power can be performed in silence. But Li Jin had different concerns. You'll be wearing 7 layers of traditional hanbok, the scarred Omega said during their private training session. Heavy silk, restrictive. If something goes wrong, if there's an attack, you need to know how to move, how to fight, how to escape without getting tangled in your own ceremonial robes. She procured an exact replica of Yoon Seo's ceremony hanbok for training. He learned to move in it, how to shift his weight, where the fabric would bind, how to tear specific seams if he needed sudden mobility. She taught him to hide a blade in the inner layer, positioned where he could reach it in seconds. The ceremony makes you a target, Li Jin said bluntly. Every rival will be calculating whether killing you would destabilize J1. You need to be ready. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, Yoon Seo felt that familiar thrill, the edge of danger that had become almost addictive over 3 months. The language training was equally intense. Mi Kyung personally coached him on the formal phrases he'd need to greet allied family representatives. The Sumiyoshikai representative will expect perfect Kigo, honorific Japanese, she explained. Any informality would be insulting. The triad liaison responds better to Mandarin than Cantonese, but you need to recognize both dialects in case his subordinates speak. Yoon Seo absorbed it all, the tonal nuances, the cultural expectations, the subtle power dynamics embedded in language choice. He practiced until the phrases flowed naturally, until he could shift between Korean, Japanese, and Mandarin without hesitation. You're a natural linguist, Mi Kyung observed during one session. That's rare. Useful. I had to learn fast when I was delivering food, Yoon Seo replied. Restaurants in different neighborhoods, different languages. Survival skill. Everything you've learned has been preparation, Mi Kyung said softly. Even when you didn't know it. The night before the ceremony, the allied family heads began arriving. Yoon Seo stood beside J1 in the estate's formal reception hall, wearing a midnight blue suit that had been tailored to perfection. His suppressants were holding, barely, against the anxiety and anticipation flooding his system. This was the test. The moment where he'd either prove himself worthy or reveal himself as an imposter playing at power. The Sumiyoshikai representative arrived first. Tanaka Hiroshi, a silver-haired alpha in his 60s who controlled half of Tokyo's underground economy. His eyes swept over Yoon Seo with calculated assessment. Yoon Seo bowed, precisely the angle Professor Kang had drilled into him, and spoke in flawless, formal Japanese. Tanaka-sama, your presence honors our family. We are grateful for your journey and your continued friendship. Tanaka's eyebrows rose fractionally. Then he smiled, genuine approval. Your Omega has been well taught, Han-san. Impressive. He teaches himself, J1 replied, his hand finding Yoon Seo's lower back. I merely provide the resources. The triad liaison came next, Chen Wei, younger, sharper, his reputation for ruthlessness preceding him like a shadow. Yoon Seo greeted him in Mandarin, his tones precise, acknowledging Chen's status without deferring. Chen studied him for a long moment. I heard you identified the traitor in your organization. Choi Sung-minute, yes? Impressive for someone so new to this world. I had excellent teachers, Yoon Seo replied smoothly. And motivation to learn quickly. Survival motivation, Chen said. The best kind. He nodded to J1. You chose well. An Omega with intelligence is worth 10 with beauty alone. More representatives arrived throughout the evening, Russian Bratva liaisons, Southeast Asian syndicate heads, the complex web of alliances that kept the Han organization powerful. Yoon Seo greeted each one appropriately, his language skills and cultural knowledge on full display. He caught Mi Kyung watching from across the room, her approval visible despite her careful neutrality. J1's scent had been growing warmer all evening, pride, possession, Something deeper that made Yoon Seo's suppressants work overtime. As the reception wound down, Park Do-hyun approached, a glass of whiskey in hand. His expression was contemplative, assessing. 3 months ago, you were a delivery driver who'd never seen the inside of a world like this, Do-hyun said quietly. Tonight, you handled international syndicate heads like you were born to it. You've become exactly what Mi Kyung hoped you would. Thank you, Sun Binim. Don't thank me yet. Do-hyun's eyes were serious. Tomorrow, you'll be formally bonded. You'll become co-head of this organization in everything but title. Every rival will be watching. Every enemy will be calculating. You've proven you can learn, that you can adapt. He paused. The question is whether you can survive what comes next. Because once that ceremony happens, there's no going back. You'll be marked, claimed, a target for the rest of your life. Yoon Seo met his gaze steadily. I know. And you're still choosing this. I chose this 3 months ago when I signed that contract, Yoon Seo replied. Everything since has just been me becoming who I need to be to survive it. Do-hyun smiled, grim but genuine. Then may you live long enough to teach the rest of us how it's done. As Do-hyun walked away, Jae-won appeared at Yoon Seo's side, his hand sliding around his waist with proprietary certainty. Tomorrow, Jae-won said softly, his breath warm against Yoon Seo's ear. Tomorrow you become mine. Completely. Permanently. Yoon Seo leaned into him slightly, allowing himself this moment of vulnerability before the performance resumed. I already am. Then tomorrow, Jae-won corrected, the world learns it. Yoon Seo found the estate gardens at 2 a.m., when sleep refused to come and his mind wouldn't stop calculating every way tomorrow's ceremony could go wrong. The air was cool, jasmine blooming in the darkness, and the koi pond reflected moonlight like scattered diamonds. He wasn't alone. Jae-won sat on the stone bench near the water, still dressed in the shirt and slacks from the reception, his jacket discarded and his sleeves rolled up. He looked uncharacteristically uncertain, no mask of control, no calculated alpha dominance. Just a man staring at water and thinking too hard. Couldn't sleep either? Yoon Seo asked. Jae-won glanced up, something crossing his face, relief, maybe, or recognition. No. Tomorrow changes everything. It's supposed to. Yoon Seo moved closer, taking a seat on the bench with careful distance between them. That's the point of a bonding ceremony. I didn't expect this, Jae-won said abruptly. You. Any of it. What did you expect? A solution to a political problem. Jae-won's voice was rough, honest in a way Yoon Seo had rarely heard. An Omega who'd play the role, take the money, and count down the days until the contract expired. Someone I'd have to protect and manage and keep at arm's length because getting attached would be a liability. That's cold. That's survival. Jae-won turned to face him, and in the moonlight, his eyes held something Yoon Seo couldn't quite name. But instead, you became. He trailed off, his alpha scent shifting, warmer, uncertain, complicated with emotions he clearly didn't know how to voice. Became what? Yoon Seo pressed, his heart racing in ways that had nothing to do with fear. Indispensable. Dangerous. Mine. Jae-won's jaw tightened. You were supposed to be a chess piece. Instead, you learned the game and started playing it better than half my underbosses. You see things I miss. You think 3 moves ahead. You challenge me when I'm wrong and back me when I'm right. You've become your partner, Yoon Seo finished quietly. Yes. The word came out rough, weighted. My partner. My equal. Something I didn't know I needed until you were already filling that space. Yoon Seo's suppressants were failing again. They always did around Jae-won now, his biology responding to the alpha's presence in ways that bypassed logic and went straight to instinct. It wasn't supposed to be real, he admitted. The contract, the arrangement, all of it. I was supposed to survive a year and walk away. But somewhere between Command Central and tonight, you stopped pretending. We both did. Yoon Seo met his eyes. This isn't a performance anymore, J1. I'm not counting down days until I can leave. I'm planning for what happens after tomorrow. After the ceremony. After, he stopped, unsure how to finish. After we're bonded, J1 said. Permanently. Biologically. In ways that can't be undone. Does that scare you? Terrifies me. J1's honesty was brutal, unflinching. Because I've built my life on control. On not needing anyone, not depending on anyone. The moment you bond with someone, you give them power to destroy you. And I'm about to give you that power willingly. I'm giving you the same power, Yoon Seo pointed out. Are you scared? Yes. Yoon Seo's laugh was soft, almost broken. I'm terrified. Because 3 months ago I was nobody. Invisible. Powerless. And tomorrow I become co-head of a criminal empire, bonded to an alpha who could crush me or protect me depending on his mood. That's insane. But you're still choosing it. Because you're worth the risk. The words came out before Yoon Seo could stop them, honest and raw. You're ruthless and calculating and you threaten 16-year-old girls to get what you want. But you're also fair. You listen. You trusted me when no one else did. You gave me power when you could have kept me decorative and safe. He paused. You made me dangerous, J1. And I've never felt more alive. J1's scent flooded the garden. Claim scent, the biological precursor to bonding, rich with possession and approval and something deeper. We need rules, he said. For this. For us. A survival philosophy. Exactly. J1 shifted closer, the distance between them shrinking. We protect each other. Always. Even when it's tactically questionable. Agreed. We trust each other's judgment. If you see something I don't, I listen. If I call something, you back me. Without question. We present a united front, J1 continued. To the organization, to rivals, to everyone. Any disagreements happen privately. Publicly, we're unbreakable. A partnership built on mutual competence, Yoon Seo said. Not submission. Not traditional alpha-omega dynamics. Equals choosing to stand together. Yes. J1's hand found his, fingers interlacing with deliberate intention. This bond isn't about biology or tradition, Yoon Seo. It's about choosing to face this world together when everything, enemies, rivals, even our own instincts, tries to tear us apart. Yoon Seo's breath caught. They weren't saying love, neither of them was ready for that word, for the vulnerability it required. But the foundation was there, respect earned through competence, trust built through shared darkness, partnership forged in violence and intelligence and mutual recognition. Tomorrow, Yoon Seo said quietly, when they ask if I choose this bond, I won't be lying. J1's smile was slight, genuine, devastating in its rare authenticity. Neither will I. They sat in silence, hands clasped, watching moonlight dance on water. In 12 hours, they'd stand before hundreds and formalize what had already become true. They were partners, equals, two people who'd found each other in darkness and decided to survive it together. J1? Yes? Don't let me regret this. J1 pulled him closer, his alpha scent wrapping around Yoon Seo like a promise. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you don't. It wasn't a declaration of love. It was something better, a commitment built on reality instead of romance, on choosing each other despite knowing exactly how dangerous that choice was. Tomorrow, they'd make it permanent. Tonight, they sat in gardens and prepared for war disguised as a wedding. 2 months before the bonding ceremony, Yoon Seo found himself in the Han organization's intelligence hub at 3 a.m., surrounded by shipping manifests and personnel files, doing what he'd come to realize he was exceptionally good at, seeing patterns where others saw noise. These numbers are wrong, he said, highlighting a discrepancy in the latest logistics report. Park Do-hyun looked up from his own paperwork, skepticism giving way to interest. Wrong how? Container 4782B manifested weight, 2,400 kilograms. Actual documented weight at customs, 2,380 kilograms. Yoon Seo pulled up 3 more reports. Same container route, same 20-kilogram discrepancy, 3 times in the past month. Someone's removing product before it reaches customs documentation. Could be measurement error. Not 3 times in a row with the exact same variance. Yoon Seo cross-referenced personnel logs. And look, same logistics coordinator handled all 3 shipments. Kim Tae-hyun. He's been with the organization for 8 years, perfect record, no red flags. Until now. Do-hyun's expression hardened. Police informant. Most likely. Small sample removal for evidence documentation, consistent enough to build a case but not enough to trigger obvious alarms. Yoon Seo felt the familiar thrill of puzzle pieces clicking into place. He's smart. But not smart enough to account for someone actually comparing manifests across months. Do-hyun made a call. Within an hour, Kim Tae-hyun was in an interrogation room, and by dawn, they had confirmation, 8 months of feeding information to a police task force building a RICO case against the Han organization. How did you catch that? Do-hyun asked afterward, genuine curiosity in his voice. My analysts missed it for 8 months. Because your analysts were looking for big discrepancies. Dramatic theft, major losses. But informants are careful. They take small samples, create minor inconsistencies that look like clerical errors. Yoon Seo shrugged. I spent years delivering food, comparing receipts against actual orders. You learn to spot the small differences. You have a gift for this, Do-hyun said. Waste of talent to keep you decorative. 2 weeks later, Yoon Seo proved it again. He was at a Han-owned restaurant in Gangnam, supposedly checking security protocols, actually learning how the organization laundered money through legitimate businesses, when he noticed one of the guards. Young, mid-20s, normally calm. But today his hands trembled slightly when he adjusted his jacket. His eyes kept darting to the entrance, and he was sweating despite the air conditioning. Yoon Seo's nursing instincts fired. That wasn't nervousness. That was terror barely contained. He approached casually. You okay? You look like you might be coming down with something. The guard's eyes widened, fear, relief, desperation all at once. I'm fine. Just tired. But his scent told a different story. Stress pheromones so thick they were almost visible. And when Yoon Seo moved closer, he saw it. The bulge under the guard's jacket, too large and too rigid to be a standard weapon. Step outside with me, Yoon Seo said quietly, his voice calm but allowing no argument. Right now. The guard's face crumbled. They have my daughter. Black Lotus. They said if I don't let them in, if I don't, his voice broke. She's 8 years old. Yoon Seo got him outside, away from the restaurant, and called Lee Jin. The bomb squad found 12 pounds of C4 strapped to the guard's chest, enough to level the building and kill everyone inside, including a meeting of 3 underbosses happening in the private room upstairs. Jae-won stared at him afterward, his scent thick with something between horror and awe. How did you know? His hands were shaking. He was sweating in a cold room. And his eyes, Yoon Seo paused. I worked in emergency rooms before delivery driving. You learn to read desperation. People about to do something terrible have a specific look. Like they are already mourning. You saved 37 lives today, Mi Kyung said. Including my son's. After that, she officially assigned him to intelligence analysis, working directly with Do-hyun to map Black Lotus operations and identify vulnerabilities. That's when they found the pattern. 3 university students attacked in the past 2 months, Yoon Seo said, spreading police reports across the conference table. All Omegas. All from families connected to criminal organizations, not just ours, but Triad, Yakuza, even the Russian Bratva. Minute Ho is building a leverage network, Do-hyun said, his expression darkening. Grab the Omega children of powerful families, use them as hostages or ransom. Specifically targeting universities because security is lighter there than at family estates. Yoon Seo pulled up another file. And look at this. Social media monitoring shows Black Lotus operatives following several Yonsei University students. Including. He stopped, the name on the screen making his blood run cold. Park Minute J, Do-hyun said quietly, his voice absolutely flat. My brother. The room went silent. Everyone knew about Do-hyun's Omega brother, the one he'd been disowned for supporting. The vulnerability Do-hyun had spent 3 years trying to hide. We increase his security immediately, Jae-won said. Full detail, rotating shifts. He'll refuse. Do-hyun's hands clenched into fists. He's spent 3 years building a life outside this world. The moment I put guards on him, I prove that he can never escape it. Better in prison than dead, Yoon Seo said. You don't understand. Do-hyun's voice cracked slightly. When our father disowned him, Minute J told me he'd rather die free than live in a cage. Those were his exact words. If I force protection on him, I become the thing he ran away from. Yoon Seo thought of Hannah, of the lies he was telling to keep her safe, of the impossible choice between protection and autonomy. Then we tell him the truth. We show him the evidence. We let him choose. They called Minute J in. He came warily, a slender Omega with Do-hyun's eyes and none of his hardness. When they showed him the targeting pattern, the social media surveillance, the very real threat, his face paled. I'm not living in a cage because of your world, Minute J said, his voice shaking but firm. I left that life. I built something clean, something mine. I'm not giving that up because some psychopath is targeting Omegas. Minute J, Do-hyun started. No. Minute J stood, anger and fear warring in his expression. You chose this life, Hyung. I chose differently. And I won't let your choices trap me. He left. Do-hyun stared at the closed door, his control fracturing in ways Yoon Seo had never seen. We put surveillance on him anyway, Jae-won said. Quietly. He doesn't have to know. He'll know, Do-hyun said quietly. And he'll hate me for it. But at least he'll be alive to hate me. Yoon Seo filed the information away, the pattern complete in his mind. Minute Ho was targeting leverage points. Vulnerable Omegas from powerful families. And Minute J had just painted a target on himself by refusing protection. It was only a matter of time. The apartment Yoon Seo had rented for Hannah's visit was aggressively normal. 1 bedroom in Gangnam, generic IKEA furniture, motivational posters on the walls, a coffee maker that had never been used. He'd even bought cereal and milk to stock the refrigerator, created a fake work schedule on the kitchen calendar, left a blazer on the coat rack like he actually commuted to an office. The lie was perfect. Except for the timing. Hannah arrived on Friday afternoon, her excitement palpable as she explored the apartment that was supposed to be her brother's new life. It's so nice, Oppa. And this neighborhood, there's a coffee shop on every corner. You must love it here. It's convenient, Yoon Seo said, his smile feeling like it might crack his face. Close to work. Speaking of work, can I finally meet your boss? You've been talking about this security consulting firm for months, but I still don't even know the company name. They are very private. Client confidentiality and all that. Hannah's eyes narrowed slightly. You know you're doing it again, right? The script voice. Like you're reading from a teleprompter. I'm just tired. Long week. She didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. They spent Friday evening doing normal sibling things, ordering takeout, watching a movie, pretending everything was fine. Yoon Seo's phone buzzed constantly with messages about ceremony logistics, security updates, last-minute coordination. He ignored them all, keeping his attention on Hannah, on maintaining the illusion. But Saturday morning, everything fell apart. I'm going to run errands, Yoon Seo said, already dressed. There's a cafe downstairs if you want breakfast. I'll be back in a few hours. I'll come with you, Hannah offered. No, I mean, it's boring work stuff. Picking up documents, that kind of thing. You should explore the neighborhood. Her eyes studied him, too knowing, too sharp. Okay, Oppa. He left the apartment, relief flooding through him. The ceremony was in 6 hours. He just needed to keep Hannah distracted until it was over, then he could return and maintain the fiction a little longer. Just until he figured out how to tell her the truth. Or how to cut her out completely, like Mi Kyung had advised. What Yoon Seo didn't notice was the security detail 2 cars back. What he didn't see was Hannah watching from the cafe window across the street, her phone tracking his location through the family sharing app he'd forgotten he'd activated months ago. And what he absolutely didn't anticipate was his brilliant, stubborn sister following him all the way to the Han estate. The bonding ceremony was already underway when Hannah arrived at the estate gates. She'd taken a taxi, told the guard at the entrance that she was a guest, and somehow, whether through charm or determination or the chaos of hundreds of arriving guests, she'd gotten inside. She was in the building. In the crowd. Watching from the back of the ceremony hall as her brother stood at an altar in midnight blue hanbok, his hand clasped with a man who radiated power and danger, surrounded by people who looked like they belonged in thriller movies rather than weddings. Hannah's world tilted. This wasn't a security consulting job. This wasn't normal. This was. The explosion ripped through reality. 1 second, traditional music and formal vows. The next, fire and glass and screaming. The blast waved through Hannah backward, her shoulder hitting a pillar hard enough to make her vision blur. Smoke filled the hall. Someone was shouting in Korean, then Japanese, then languages she didn't recognize. Through the chaos, she saw him. Yoon Seo rising from the rubble in torn ceremonial silk, blood splattered across expensive fabric that wasn't his, that belonged to someone else's wounds. His face was cut, his shoulder bleeding, but he moved with purpose, not panic. Like violence was expected. Like this was normal. The man from the altar, tall, terrifying, clearly the alpha, pulled Yoon Seo close, checking him for injuries with possessive intensity. Armed guards surrounded them in formation, weapons drawn, creating a protective perimeter. An elderly woman was shouting commands in 3 languages, blood running down her temple, and people were responding with military precision. And Yoon Seo stood in the center of it all, not as a victim, but as someone who belonged there. Oppa. The word came out broken, disbelieving. Yoon Seo's head snapped toward her, and the expression on his face, horror, guilt, fear, told her everything she needed to know. Every lie. Every evasion. Every I'm fine, and don't worry and it's just work stress. All of it had been leading to this moment. To her brother standing in the wreckage of what was clearly a criminal organization's bonding ceremony, surrounded by armed men, wearing clothes that cost more than their father's entire debt. The evacuation was organized chaos. Guards moved guests toward exits, checking for secondary devices, tending to wounded. Yoon Seo tried to reach Hannah, but security protocols kept pulling him away, checking vitals, confirming threats neutralized, coordinating response. By the time he broke free, she'd been moved to a secure room with other civilians. He found her sitting on a leather sofa, her school uniform torn and dusty, her eyes red from crying or smoke or both. Hannah. Don't. She stood, her voice shaking with fury and fear. Don't you dare Hannah me like everything's fine. Like you didn't just, her voice cracked. What are you? What is this? I can explain. You lied to me. The words exploded out of her. About everything. Your job, your life, where you've been, who you've become. I thought, she was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. I thought you were protecting me. But you were just lying. You didn't trust me with the truth. Hannah, please. Security consulting. Her laugh was bitter, broken. That man at the altar, he's not your boss, is he? He's your, what? Your husband? Your alpha? And this place, these people with guns, the way everyone treats you like you're important. I was trying to keep you safe. By lying? Hannah's voice rose. By making me think everything was normal while you were doing, whatever this is. Mafia? Organized crime? I'm not stupid, Oppa. I can see what this is. Yoon Seo's throat tightened. You're right. I lied. I've been lying for 3 months because I didn't know how to tell you that I'd become someone you wouldn't recognize. That I'd made choices that would terrify you. You don't get to decide what terrifies me. Hannah shouted. You don't get to lie to me for my own good, and then act like I should be grateful. I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. The accusation hit like a physical blow. From having to admit what you'd become. From seeing the disappointment in my eyes. You weren't protecting me, Oppa. You were keeping me in the dark so you could keep pretending you were still the brother I knew. The truth of it settled like lead in Yoon Seo's stomach. She was right. He'd been protecting himself as much as her. Hannah, please. Let me explain. I don't want to hear it. She moved toward the door. I don't even know who you are anymore. Hannah, wait. But she was already running, pushing past guards, disappearing into corridors. Yoon Seo tried to follow, but Jaewon's hand caught his arm. Let her go, the alpha said quietly. She needs time. She's 16. She's terrified. I can't just. Security will track her. Keep her safe. But right now, she needs space from you. Jaewon's eyes were sympathetic despite the chaos around them. You can't force her to understand. She has to choose it. Yoon Seo stared at the empty doorway where his sister had disappeared, the taste of ash and failure in his mouth. His two worlds had collided. And he'd lost the most important person in both of them. The explosion had killed 4 people and injured 17 more. The security teams were still clearing the estate for secondary devices when the message arrived. Park Do-hyun's phone lit up with a video file. He opened it in Command Central, surrounded by underbosses and security coordinators coordinating the emergency response. The first 3 seconds made his face drain of all color. Minute J. Bound to a chair in an empty warehouse, a bag over his head, his omega sense suppressants clearly failing based on the visible trembling. A Black Lotus operative stood behind him, gun visible, face obscured by a mask. Kang Minute-ho's voice came through the audio, amused and cruel. Hello, Park Do-hyun. While you were busy with your little celebration, we collected something you value. The Western ports and shipping routes, full control, transferred within 24 hours. Or we find out how much an Omega can scream before he breaks completely. The video cut to black. Do-hyun made a sound that Yoon Seo had never heard from the unshakable underboss, something between a sob and a growl, his alpha instincts fracturing against terror for his brother. He refused protection, Do-hyun said, his voice hollow. I tried to warn him. I tried. His hands shook as he replayed the video, as if looking hard enough would reveal Minute J's location. Jaewon's jaw was tight, his scent controlled but edged with fury. Timeline. How long has he been missing? Campus security footage shows Black Lotus operatives grabbing him 47 minutes ago, one of the analysts reported. 3-vehicle convoy left Yonsei heading northwest. We lost them in Ilsan. They planned this, Yoon Seo said quietly, the pieces clicking into place. The ceremony bombing wasn't about killing us. It was about distraction. Pulling all our security and attention to the estate while they grabbed Minute J. Tactical diversion, Jung Tae-yang agreed grimly. And it worked perfectly. We were so focused on the immediate threat that we left the secondary targets vulnerable. The emergency meeting convened within the hour. Every underboss packed into Command Central, the screens showing the ransom demand, the map of Western territories, the cold mathematics of organizational survival. We can't give up those ports, one of the younger underbosses, Kim Jae-sung, said flatly. That's a third of our annual revenue. 40% of our shipping infrastructure. We'd be crippling ourselves. He's talking about my brother like he's a line item in a budget. Do-hyun's voice was dangerous, barely controlled. He's one person, Kim continued, oblivious or uncaring. One Omega against the survival of an organization that employs thousands. The calculation is clear. The calculation, Do-hyun said, his control shattering, is my brother being tortured by psychopaths because he's connected to me. That's the calculation you're so comfortable with. I understand your personal stake. You understand nothing. Do-hyun stood, his alpha presence flooding the room. That's my family. My blood. The person I've protected for 3 years because our father threw him away like garbage for refusing to be sold in an arranged bond. And you're suggesting we do the same thing, decide he's disposable because saving him costs too much. Uncomfortable silence filled Command Central. Yoon Seo watched Jae-won, saw the alpha's internal struggle written across his face. The strategic calculation versus the moral weight. The needs of the organization versus the life of one Omega who'd had the misfortune of being related to an underboss. This was the test. The moment that would define what kind of leader Jae-won would be. What kind of organization they were building. The Western ports are irreplaceable, another underboss said carefully. If we give them up, it will take years to rebuild that infrastructure. The financial loss alone. So we let him die. Yoon Seo's voice cut through the debate, quiet but commanding. Every eye in the room turned to him, the Omega who'd been bonded for approximately 3 hours, who technically had no official authority, who was supposed to be recovering from the ceremony attack. But something had changed. The explosion had burned away the last of his hesitation, his uncertainty about claiming his place. Hannah's accusations had stripped him bare. You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourself from admitting what you'd become. So be it. He'd become this. He might as well own it. We're getting Minute J back, Yoon Seo said, his voice steady and absolute. Not because it's strategically sound. Not because the numbers add up. Because if we don't, we prove Minute Ho right. Right about what? Kim challenged. That we see Omegas as disposable. As acceptable losses in service of profit margins. Yoon Seo met the underboss's eyes without flinching. Minute Ho sent that message to Do-hyun, but he meant it for all of you. His testing whether this organization values Omega lives or whether we're just assets to be calculated against shipping routes. I'm not finished. The command in Yoon Seo's voice surprised even himself. I stood at an altar 3 hours ago and bonded with your leader. I've spent 3 months proving I'm more than decorative, more than a political solution. But if Minute J dies because this organization decided he wasn't worth the cost? Then every Omega connected to this family, including me, becomes expendable the moment the math doesn't work out. He turned to Jae-won, whose expression was unreadable. You told me last night that this bond was about choosing to stand together. About being partners. So I'm making a partner's decision, we're getting Minute J back. And if that costs us the Western ports, we rebuild. If it costs us revenue, we adapt. Because I refuse to be co-head of an organization built on the principle that some people are worth less than real estate. The room was dead silent. Several underbosses looked shocked that he'd claimed the title, co-head, so openly, so definitively. Others looked calculating, reassessing. Do-hyun was staring at him with something like desperate hope. Jae-won's sense shifted, approval, pride, something deeper. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. Yoon Seo is right. We're getting Minute J back. The ports, Kim started, are replaceable. Jae-won cut him off. Minute Ho wants us to choose between morality and profit. We're going to show him that's a false choice. We get Minute J back, and we make Minute Ho pay for taking him in the first place. How? Jung Taeyang asked. We have 24 hours and no location. Yoon Seo's mind was already working, patterns forming. Minute Ho is expecting negotiation. Desperation. He thinks we'll spend the time trying to bargain or building a tactical assault. He's not expecting. You, Jae-won finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. He's not expecting you. Exactly. Yoon Seo felt the pieces click into place, dangerous and perfect. An Omega walking into a hostage negotiation. Appearing vulnerable. Offering himself as alternative leverage. Absolutely not. Jae-won said immediately, his alpha instincts roaring against the idea. You said we trust each other's judgment. Yoon Seo held his gaze. Trust mine. I can get to Minute J. I can manipulate the situation. But only if you let me. The argument that followed was brutal, honest, and ultimately, Yoon Seo won. Because he wasn't just J1's bonded Omega anymore. He was co-head. And co-heads made the hard calls. Even when those calls meant walking into the line of fire. The plan was insane. J1 said so approximately 17 times during the 2-hour strategy session. You walk in alone, unarmed, offering yourself as bait for an exchange that we have no guarantee they'll honor, J1 said, his alpha scent thick with controlled fury. That's not a plan. That's suicide with extra steps. It's psychological warfare, Yoon Seo corrected, studying the Yonsei University campus map spread across the command central table. Minute Ho expects desperate negotiations or tactical assault. He's not expecting an Omega to volunteer himself as alternative leverage. Because it's insane. Because it changes the power dynamic. Yoon Seo looked up, meeting J1's winterstorm eyes. The operative holding Minute J isn't a hardened soldier. Look at the video, he's young, nervous, probably recruited for this specific job. Minute Ho uses disposable assets for operations like this. People who are desperate, inexperienced, scared. Which makes them unpredictable, Park Do-hyun said, though his desperation for any solution was palpable. Which makes them manipulable. Yoon Seo pulled up the psychological profile he'd been building. I walk in as an Omega, biology that triggers protective instincts even in enemies. I talk to him like a human, not a criminal. I give him an exit strategy that doesn't end in his death. And I create time pressure that makes staying more dangerous than cooperating. And if he shoots you on sight? J1's voice was controlled violence barely leashed. He won't. Because I'll make sure the first words out of my mouth are valuable enough to keep me alive. Yoon Seo's smile was grim. I'll offer him intelligence. Not real intelligence, carefully constructed misinformation that sounds valuable. By the time he realizes it's a bluff, Minute J will be safe and your forces will have them surrounded. Lee Jin spoke from her position near the wall. It could work. Omega presence disrupts aggression patterns. And if the target is inexperienced, social manipulation will be more effective than force. You said we trust each other's judgment, Yoon Seo said quietly, holding J1's gaze. Trust mine. I can do this. But only if you let me. The silence stretched. Then J1's jaw tightened, and Yoon Seo knew he'd won. You have a 4-minute window, J1 said. The moment I hear anything wrong, anything, we breach immediately. And Yoon Seo? His voice dropped. You come back to me. That's not a request. Understood. The Yonsei University parking garage at 11 p.m. was a concrete tomb. Dim lighting, echo-prone, the perfect spot for something to go catastrophically wrong. Yoon Seo's suppressants were barely holding against the adrenaline and fear flooding his system. His hands wanted to shake. He didn't let them. He wore civilian clothes, jeans, a simple shirt, nothing that screamed criminal organization. No wire, no weapons, nothing that would scan as a threat. Just an Omega walking into a hostage situation armed with nothing but psychology and desperation. The Black Lotus operative was exactly what Yoon Seo had predicted. Young, maybe 23, his hands trembling slightly on the gun pointed at Minute J. The Omega was still bound to a chair, the bag removed from his head, his face bruised and tear-streaked. But alive. Conscious. That was something. Stop there, the operative said, his voice cracking slightly. Don't come closer. Yoon Seo stopped, raised his hands in a non-threatening gesture. My name is Yoon Seo. I'm here to negotiate. Minute Ho said you'd send soldiers. An assault team. Minute Ho isn't here. Yoon Seo kept his voice calm, conversational. You are. And you look terrified, which tells me this wasn't your idea. So let's talk, just the two of us. What's your name? The question clearly threw him. Why do you care? Because in about 4 minutes, this place will be surrounded by 50 armed men, and whether you live or die depends on the choices you make right now. I want to know whose life I'm trying to save. Yoon Seo took a small step forward. So, your name? Sung Ho. It came out almost involuntarily. Sung Ho. Yoon Seo nodded. You're what, 23? 24? And you took this job because Minute Ho promised you something. Money, maybe. Safety for your family. A way out of whatever situation you're in. Sung Ho's eyes widened. Confirmation. Here's what Minute Ho didn't tell you, Yoon Seo continued, taking another careful step. You're expendable. This entire operation was designed with you as the disposable asset. When this goes wrong, and it will, you're the one who dies while Minute Ho walks away clean. He always does. He said if I did this, my sister's hospital bills would be paid. I know. He made similar promises to the last 3 people he recruited for suicide missions. Yoon Seo's voice was gentle, devastatingly honest. They're all dead now. And their families never saw a single one. Sung Ho's gun wavered. But here's what I can offer you, Yoon Seo said. You let Minute J go. Right now. You walk out that door, and I guarantee safe passage for you and your sister. New identities, hospital bills paid, relocation to anywhere in the country you want. You disappear, and Minute Ho never finds you. I can't trust that. No, you can't trust me. We just met. But you can trust basic mathematics. Yoon Seo gestured to the parking garage around them. In approximately 3 minutes, Han Jae-won arrives with a tactical team. You know who he is. You know what he does to people who hurt what's his. So you have 3 choices. 1, shoot me and prove you're a murderer, which guarantees your death. 2, keep holding Minute J and hope Minute Ho rescues you, which we both know won't happen. Or 3, he extended his hand. Let him go. Take my offer. Live. The silence stretched like a wire pulled to breaking. Sung Ho's eyes darted between Yoon Seo, Minute J, and the exit. Calculation warring with terror. His scent, fear, desperation, the beginning of hope, told Yoon Seo everything. My sister, Sung Ho said. She's at Seoul National Hospital. 4th floor, room 413. If you're lying. I'm not. Yoon Seo pulled out his phone, typed rapidly, showed Sung Ho the screen. That's the transfer confirmation. 200 million won to Seoul National Hospital, crediting your sister's account. It's already done. Now let him go. Sung Ho stared at the phone. At the confirmation number. At the evidence that Yoon Seo had made the payment before even entering the garage, a gesture of good faith that spoke louder than any promise. His hands shook as he lowered the gun, moved to untie Minute J. If Minute Ho finds out. He won't. Because in 60 seconds, you're going to leave through that exit, take the motorcycle we left for you, and ride to the address I just texted you. New identity documents are waiting. Your sister will be transferred to a private facility under a false name. By tomorrow, you don't exist anymore. Minute J stumbled forward, weak and terrified. Yoon Seo caught him, steadied him, his Omega instincts recognizing the trauma. Sung Ho backed toward the exit, gun still in hand but pointed down. Why? Why help me? Because you're 23 and scared and trying to save your sister, Yoon Seo said simply. That's not evil. That's desperation. And I refuse to build an organization where we don't recognize the difference. Sung Ho ran. 30 seconds later, Jae-won's tactical team breached the garage, weapons raised, finding Yoon Seo supporting Minute J with no threat in sight. Hostage secure, Yoon Seo said calmly, as if he negotiated life or death situations every day. Operative neutralized through non-violent means. Suggest immediate medical evaluation for Minute J and psychological support. Park Do-hyun reached his brother in seconds, pulling him into an embrace that broke the underboss's legendary control. You're safe. You're safe. I'm so sorry. Jae-won's hands framed Yoon Seo's face, checking for injuries, his alpha scent flooding with relief and fury and pride. You insane, brilliant, terrifying Omega. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. Yoon Seo leaned into him briefly, allowing himself this moment of vulnerability. Trust, remember? I'm never trusting your judgment again, Jae-won muttered, but his grip said otherwise. That night, in Command Central, with every underboss assembled and Minute Jae safely in medical care, Mi-kyung stood before the organization's leadership. She looked frailer than ever, but her voice carried absolute authority. 3 months ago, I brought Yoon Seo into this family as a political solution. Tonight, he proved his something far more valuable. She turned to Yoon Seo, her eyes fierce with approval. He negotiated a hostage release without firing a shot. He turned an enemy operative into an asset. He prioritized an Omega life over territorial profit and found a way to achieve both. That's not the work of a decorative mate. That's the work of a leader. She gestured for Yoon Seo to stand beside Jae-won at the head of the table. Yoon Seo isn't just Jae-won's bonded Omega. His co-head of this family. You answer to both of them now. Any objections? Silence. Then Park Do-hyun stood, bowed formally. No objections. He saved my brother's life. He has my complete loyalty. One by one, the other underbosses followed suit. Even Kim Jae-sung, who'd argued against the rescue, bowed his acknowledgement. Yoon Seo looked at the assembled leadership bowing to him, at Jae-won's hand finding his, at Mi-kyung's proud smile. He wasn't playing queen anymore. He was one. And the darkness that had claimed him 3 months ago? He'd learned to rule it.